of the Lisbon Town Council to order. Would you all please rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Twyla, the roll call.
Councillor Bowie?
Here.
Councillor Bickford?
Here.
Councillor Cody?
Here.
Councillor La Rochelle?
Here.
Councillor Lunt?
Here.
Councillor Mason?
Here.
And Councillor Pomelo is excused.
All right, the first item, Twyla.
There are no public hearings, so we begin with the consent agenda. Are there any things to be removed? Seeing none, there's a motion, Order 2011-110, to approve the off-premise catering permit for the Slovak Catholic Association.
All those in favor?
Motion so moved.
Sorry.
Seconded.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Order
And
passed.
opposed? All right,
Order passed 6-0.
next item.
Order 2011-111, council working rules.
We put in your packets a copy of, with all the changes that was recommended and discussed at one of your workshops and meetings, with all the corrections and things that Lori had recommended. Everybody hopefully got a chance to go through it and read it. And
How does council feel about this? Any opinions, feedback we want to do here?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to accept them.
I'd like to make a comment before we do.
Go ahead.
I feel that the changing of the working rules is a form of censorship only. The reason that they are changing the working rules is because they feel that we can't get anything accomplished because people keep coming at us about issues in the town and things that aren't necessarily done the way that they feel it should be done. And I feel that changing the working rules is nothing more than censorship. And censorship goes against the Constitution of the United States, and each individual councilor has sworn to an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And as far as I'm concerned, this goes right against them. We have to be open to the people of this community, regardless whether or not anybody likes it or not. We are put here by the people of this community, and anything you do to stop them from speaking, addressing their concerns is completely and totally against the Constitution, and I feel that this should never happen.
All right, does Councilor Bowie's motion have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I mean, for myself, I think that certainly there's an argument there that we are having trouble, moving our meetings along in a timely fashion. What I would personally like to try is, rather than completely cutting off debate, that we would just allow like a 1 minute per person with only one time you can speak on an item as sort of a compromise in between there that would allow people to still speak if they have something really serious to speak about on an item, but wouldn't allow people to dominate the floor for a long time.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
One of the things through our workshop that we did discuss is the idea of originally from what it was written to, coming to some type of agreement in our workshop that we would actually still, the public still has an opportunity to speak, and they still have the information ahead about the items that are going forward. So it's not, I think the idea of using the word censorship is a little tough, because I think we're still allowing them to have the same options and same freedoms they had before, but it just rearranges the meeting, so hopefully we can do it in a more productive way. So my second was to actually go along with the meeting rules as written, and I think there was a lot of work put into them. And it's a change that we can try, and if it doesn't work, we can come back and actually make it work out. I do believe it's something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and I think it's actually a move in the right direction to try to make our meetings a little bit more as business meetings, but still allowing the public to actually put in their information on all items that are actually listed. So again, I think it was a lot of work to go to get it to this point, so that's why I make a second to approve it as written.
All right. Roger, you had a point you wanted to make?
I just seriously disagree with you. I think that this is just an attempt people from speaking what they want to speak about into only what's on the agenda. When we have a council meeting, we are here to answer to the people, whether it's on our agenda or not. If they have a reason to come to the council, they should be able to address what they want to. And this document would change that, and I disagree with it. It's not the way that we should conduct our meetings.
I believe, Mark, may I add
Go ahead.
that we did change it so anything can be addressed on audience participation at the beginning of the meeting. I think Mike made a very very valid point the last time that initial communication for the public could be on anything regardless. It didn't have to be actually on the agenda if it was at
Yes,
that
but the
point in time.
problem is, Fern, is they cannot discuss anything that has come up during the meeting. And if there's people sitting in the audience that's taking time out of their lives to come to our council meetings, they should be addressed issues that we are discussing in the council meeting. And doing it beforehand completely cuts them out of any discussion on the issues that come before the council. And I don't think that's the correct way to be doing business. I think we will suffer as a council for it also.
Steve, has the lawyer had a chance to read this over before we?
He read over Lori's draft.
Okay. Okay, you have any comments? All right, okay. Anything further from council? Anything from the public? Mr. Fillmore?
I'm reviewing, I don't know if I got the latest one or not, okay? I don't know what version I'm working off of. I'm working off of the version that's on the website. Oh, I'm Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. You didn't know that, Tyler. Okay, and I've been through this document, and I'd like to go over it with the council if they have a moment. The first item is on deadlines. First page, it says under Agenda 2, deadlines. Agenda shall be provided to the council on Friday by the close of business. I would like to see added in there and posted on the website so that the people of the town of Lisbon will know what's going on and will have a few days to research the item and be able to talk intelligently at these meetings. Okay, now, they have put out there on the website, under agenda, documents and handouts, okay? This was posted out there. Good thing. But what I'm saying is, if we're going to post the agenda on Fridays, which they do, then they should be able to post the handouts and the documents that go with it. That way we all have a chance to review them. The next item, the next one is under consent agendas. I don't understand that, what's in change there. Because it says, currently, all items appear to be questionable as to whether the item requires debate, as every item is left open for the public to comment on. I don't get that.
I think that's a comment from Lori that didn't get edited out.
Well, I mean, yeah, Mark, I'm going over this, and I don't get
yeah.
it. You guys are gonna vote on
Right.
accepting it. I don't think that should be in there. Okay? We didn't just have the opportunity to consent on this meeting, and we've never have, and I don't think that's ever been an issue for anybody. So why put that line in there? I mean, I don't get it, all right? I'm sorry, I just don't get it. Then I go over to page, whatever it is, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 4. It's under actions on agenda items. D, during the designated public hearing time or during the designated audience participation time. Don't get it. The audience participation time is for new items that are not on the agenda. We need to confine our comments to the items that are on the agenda when you're discussing them, not wandering off into another world. That's what we have audience participation for. So the line is totally unnecessary, as is In E, you have the same thing. Don't understand why we're doing that. Okay? If we have audience participation, and if you want to move it to the front, that's fine with me. I mean, I got no issues with where we talk. But I'm saying is, we all still have a comment on these items that come up before the board or the council. So I don't understand what the purpose is. And the other thing is, if you want to move a meeting along, the ideal way to do this is to present all of the facts that you have, okay, to everybody so that they can review them. Because facts are what speak for themselves. If you have all the facts on the table, then there should be very little time for debate or need for debate because everybody knows what's going on. What's happening is the only information you people get are the ones that you know that are guiding you towards the answer that you want to hear. Okay? We bring out different comments, then we shouldn't have to, because it should be, all the facts should be presented at once. And then let the facts speak for themselves. No need for us to speak, none whatsoever, if we have all the facts. But we don't always get the facts. And that's where I think that we're having the problem on moving meetings and getting things done. If you present the facts, they'll speak for themselves, and you can come to a good, sound conclusion if you have all the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the public? Okay. All right. What? Take a vote. There's a couple lines in here that were pointed out by Mr. Fillmore there on the number 2, the deadline about the parentheses comment. I believe both that and in number 3, there's a parentheses comment that were, I think, were leftover notes that are in there. And I'd like to offer an amendment to remove those 2 lines that are in parentheses under deadline on the first page. Under number 2, deadline, that parentheses comment, and number 3, the parentheses comment right there. I'd like to offer an amendment to strike those. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor of the amendment to alter the motion on the floor?
To actually remove the items that have been.
Just to remove those struck-through items there.
Yeah, that's the problem.
All right. All and against? Okay.
Order carries for the
So,
amendment. The
all
main
right.
motion is to accept it as written with the removed items.
All right. All those in favor? And opposed? And we will see how it works, and if it doesn't work, we can come back and make some changes to it if the public feels that they're not happy with it, or if we feel we're not getting information. So we're going to try it, and it's not the end of the world. It's not necessarily forever. All right, next item, Paula.
Order 2011-112, Maine Association of Police, a union contract.
This is a contract that is for the 2010-2011 year. Roger and opted not to add any change in the language because the year is almost up. At one of our next meeting, he and the attorney from the MAP unit will present you the budget, or the contract for 2011-2012. So this is one that you've already seen. There's no more changes, and just need a vote to move it forward.
So there's no changes from what was previously,
What we talked about earlier at our last meeting.
okay, I wasn't at the last meeting, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some language changes that we wanted to make, and he and the attorney had come to an agreement, but the specific language had not been decided yet, but
So does this include the
This
ability
includes
to
the one-
move to the new insurance plan?
yes, it does.
The new language or
No, this
what we're gonna
one does
approve?
not. This is the contract year that we're in currently. So this contract will end as of June 30th. And this just allows them to get their 1.75 increase. Otherwise, any changes for the insurance will come before you in July, and the new increase of 1.75.
But we can't change insurance in July. You can only change insurance on the calendar year.
No, we can do it, we have to just give them a month or 2 months' notice. So that's all been taken care of.
With
at this point.
MMA?
Yes. They don't like it, but we can do it.
So the union agreed to our position that we were holding out to at the last meeting?
Yep.
Any further discussion from council on the MAP contract? All right, anything from the public? Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept it as written or whatever.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second it.
All right, all those in favor? And opposed? All right, motion passes.
Order passed 5-1.
Next item?
Order 2011-13, carry forwards and transfers.
That's Jessica.
What you have before you with the new GASB 54 is just the proposed carries and transfers. The dollar amounts were just for me to be able to carry them into the file. The dollar amounts are not indicative of what will be at the end of the year. It's just to let you know the potential departments or areas that will have the need for carries or transfers. And with the new GASB 54, you as a council just need to vote on the potential allowance for carries and transfers within these departments. So it's not anything to do with the dollar values or the amounts that you see there. It's just on the departments and divisions that you see. You just need to vote on the potential for carries or transfers within those departments.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, this is a GASB rule. And what we're agreeing to by a vote tonight says that we're only going to have transfers in these departments. We won't have any transfers in any other department.
My understanding is that if a carrier transfer comes up within another department, you can vote again to allow it. But before year end, I just need a vote for the majority of carries and transfers that might be necessary.
Do they have this new list?
I thought it was in the papers to be in the packet.
Okay.
got
make-
this.
Okay.
Let me make copies.
I think, Steve, I think Mike said he did. You have a,
Is it the same one or not?
Different one
It's a
than
different one, I
Steve
think.
just
added.
Right,
Oh, okay.
yes, yeah.
oh,
Short list.
his I just did add a couple,
So this is a stupid law.
pretty much. Technicality.
We're voting to say we're going to recognize that we got transfers that we got to go do, or carry forwards.
Yeah,
And then we're going to vote again on the actual dollar amount.
correct, after
line
after
item
year
level.
end.
It's
Yes.
called red tape.
Yeah,
We're not going to transfer funds from contract stuff to support wage stuff,
Correct,
right? Those types of things.
correct. I believe in addition to the list that you're looking at, it was just the planning board, assessing, and health officer, primarily that I added.
Thank you.
And again, the sheet you're looking at, I have more departments listed, it's a complete list of the departments, but the ones with the dollar values will be the ones that have the potential for carries or transfers. But you're not voting on the dollar that's there.
And make a motion, we accept the potential for a transfer
I'll second it.
to be followed up at a later date.
What more is there to say?
Yep.
Again, this is a GASB rule. It's nothing that I'm forcing upon you guys. This is not a town thing. This is a GASB financial rule. Just want to clarify that.
not for the dollar values as seen
It-
today.
Correct.
You could have given us a blank sheet of paper.
Well,
with
I
just the
was going
departments, right?
to, but I was just trying to make it easier on me, sorry.
More detail.
Just want to make sure we're not authorizing those amounts.
No, you are not authorizing those dollar values.
All right, any further discussion from council? Anything from the public? Fitzgerald?
Dot Fitzgerald, resident of Lisbon Falls. Call me stupid. I do have a copy of the proposed carry forwards, and I'm curious. I don't know who else in here has them. Economic development. I'm assuming that these are amounts that were budgeted, and these are amounts that are left over at the end of the fiscal year, which we're, 9 days away from. Economic development, $13,847. Why was not that, if this is being carried forward in the Economic Development Department, why was it not deducted from the current budget so that we would appropriate less for this coming fiscal year? Can anyone answer?
Speak to that, Steve, or?
Oh, I mean, typically, carry forwards are because of specific projects or dedicated items that may not have gotten 100% completed throughout the year, or were maybe unable to start, but the money was appropriated in this particular year's budget, and we're voting to carry that forward because that work still needs to be done, and we still want to do it.
Is that the case in this particular department?
I mean, again, tonight, we're not voting on any dollar values whatsoever.
I
We're
realize.
not approving any dollar values. We will certainly go through scrutiny of what every one of these line items are when it comes to proving the dollar value.
I
That's
hear
why I'm
you.
not asking many questions tonight, because we're not approving a dollar value.
I hear you, but I still, would like my questions answered. I'm going to be going down through this, so
Yep.
be aware.
Jessica, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. Excuse me.
Yep.
Like Mike said, the majority of the carry forwards and transfers are items that either came up, that were appropriated in the last year that we either didn't get to start or did not get done, and the monies are carried forward. And in a lot of cases, they also are due to either bond money or grant money that does not get budgeted for. So it would not need to be reducing next year's budget because there's no budget there for those lines to begin with.
So is that the case for this particular department?
In that particular department, the majority of that has to do with the Moxie Festival money. Money that's taken in for the Moxie Festival or revitalization. Those funds are designated funds that get carried forward every year.
Okay, town clerk, $13,016.
Dot, we can go through this when we go through the
Yes.
carries and transfers is my suggestion. I don't mean to overstep the chair,
Right.
but these are not based on, this, what we are doing tonight is not anything to do with the numbers that you see there. All I'm asking council to approve is the potential to allow for any carry forwards and transfers within these departments. The dollar values that are there, I obviously should have left off. They are literally just there because it made it easier to pull into my spreadsheet to say I'm going to need money to carry forward within these departments.
I believe all we're authorizing is for the ability to carry forward in those departments. We're not authorizing a specific dollar value at all tonight.
And I realize that, okay, for the fire department, there's money set aside for, or what do you want to call it?
The refurbishment
Right.
replacement account.
Yeah, okay. And the police department, money set aside.
But we can go through this specifically another night, Dot, when we're actually going to have all the information there for you, so.
Okay. Town engineer, that's quite a walk
I
in the sun.
I think that's mostly money left over from the Route 9 and Upland Road bond money.
On money.
Yeah, it's still in the system. Thank you. Anything, anyone else have any comments from public? All right.
Fun.
All those in favor of allowing us to carry forward these departments
And transfer.
and transfers? Yeah.
No dollar value.
Right, no dollar values attached. And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item?
Order 2011 to, 2011-114, the 2011-12 municipal budget adoption.
Now, I would like to make a motion here that we will just, by roll call vote on each of the individual departments and not on each individual line. Twilight, you can read all the individual lines, but we'll only have a roll call vote for each department except for the police budget of 02200, which we will break out and vote on individual lines due to a member who can't vote on a certain line there.
Would you like me to start with line 5100 for personnel services and elected officials?
Hold on a second.
So, Mark, so if I understand, what you're requesting is, we're gonna vote on elected officials at the total number, one time. We're not gonna, we can read each individual line so that we know what the totals
Right.
are, that would then total up to the total. And then we're gonna vote.
Once, right, so we don't vote 5 times on every department, which takes all night.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion from council on how we're going to vote on this? Okay. From the public, Mr. Fillmore, you had a comment? Keep it short.
Oh, I will. I've been through a budget. I don't know which budget I'm working off of, okay, whether it's yours or not, the one that's being presented. But I found many discrepancies in it that I need to address. Now, if you're going to vote on each item by department, are we going to have a discussion before, or are we going to, how are we going to do this? Do you want me to just read my list of things here?
So this is it's for the council here, but if you have some comments you would like to make on the budget, yeah, you can go ahead and make those at this time before we get started.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
Mark, I sent you guys an email asking you to tell me how you want me to address the council, and I didn't get a response from anybody, so I don't know.
Okay, I didn't see that, but
I'll just go through these. They're not in a priority, they're just down here. 3.65 increase in the town manager's secretary pay for adjustment for job duties. What are these additional duties? 103.89 increase for the town manager and his secretary for professional development. What is the training? Why is the fire chief and the recreation director going to receive a $10,000 increase in salary? According to my calculations, it's a little more than 1.75 where everybody else is receiving. Under the town clerk, R&M equipment, the town spent $84.81 in 2010 and $502 in 2011 to date. But the budget has it at $2,400. And there are like 50 items, line items in here with the same. Why is this so padded with if we didn't spend even $1,000 in the last 2 years, what makes you think we're going to spend $2,400 in this year's budget? Under the animal control officer, gas has increased 85.42. The notation reads, due to additional town to patrol. Well, why isn't the other town paying for the additional gas? Under the town engineer, this salary is $37,428. The notation reads, town engineer's salary at 50%. Where's the other 50%? Under 70-700 economic development, there is $54,418 proposed by the town manager and $109,152 by the elected. The town of Lisbon has a state of Maine approval to pay for the economic development department from the TIF of Dingley Press. So why is that money even in the budget to begin with? Under last year's budget, $7,683, 181.66. The town has spent approximately $6 million. Where's the other $1.1 million? I don't see it accounted for anywhere in the budget. Did it just go poof and disappeared? Okay, those are the items that I went through. Now, rest assured, those numbers may be off because I have no clue what budget we're working off of, because it wasn't posted on the documents and handouts for this evening. So I don't know what the dollar amount is, but this is the items that I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fillmore. And I did go through before the meeting and check out line by line everything, and pretty much everything is very close to what it was in our original, the proposal from the manager to us back at the beginning of the whole process. So I don't see any big changes anywhere between one format and the other.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Before, before we go, one thing that we had talked about was the advisory board. Now, are they going to be giving their recommendations
yes, yeah,
prior to us
before-
going through our vote?
Yep,
Okay.
that is the plan.
Okay.
But now we have a motion on the floor to vote department by department rather than line by line, except for the police. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed 6-0.
All right. Now, would the advisory board like to come up and make their recommendation?
We would.
Good evening, everyone. John Wiersbicky, Chair of the Budget Advisory Board. First off, we would like to say to everyone that worked on this budget, it's very obvious you folks had a very difficult job, you worked very hard, and to keep everything basically flat, that shows how much work and commitment, so kudos to you folks. A very good job to all the folks that worked on it. Second thing about the Budget Advisory Board, the charter is very vague about our responsibilities, what we do, and things. So what we have determined is the best thing. The town council, you have to vote, roll call vote, but it just says the Budget Advisory Board. So how we're working it, we will speak with one voice. Every recommendation we do is by a majority decision of all of us. We voted on all the things. Some of the topics, I will say, have been very contentious. We've had some very interesting conversations that I think we all can agree on. But this is the majority vote of all of us. So it's not necessarily my vote, so don't shoot the messenger. But okay, the initial recommendations that we had put out back on a workshop that I want to make sure is just put out for the record. First one was hold the mill rate as it is, and it appears that is done or even slightly exceeded, so great job with that. Make the public more aware of our existing debt. And that was done with the bond issues. That was up on the wall, was also on each of the ballots. That's a good start. I think it's also being put out in the town manager's report. So we're getting more information out there. That is a good thing. I think people are always asking for more information, so that's very good. Our next recommendation was to freeze any wage increases at the 1.75%. We just felt the way the economy was, it shouldn't go more than that. There's a little difference there, so. Okay. Capital projects, we had recommended that they all be bonded separately. That's exactly what happened. So we feel the public needed to be able to let them know what they think rather than just on one giant amount individually, so they could pick and choose. Fisher Road Bridge, what we had recommended is there was already money left over from the bond, but not enough to complete both the repair and the paving. We recommended you just find the money out of the budget. Next thing on the reevaluation, we agree 100% that it has to be done. We need to get more money from the state. We recommended that we find the money in the budget. Public Works addition, we recommended do not do it this year, and that was taken off the bond issue, so that. We do have one new recommendation that we do, and this is going forward. It's not something we can do with the budget right now, but if it ends up that we get an increase in revenue sharing from the state, any extra money comes in, use that for debt management to try and pay off some of our existing debt. Because the way the economy is, it was, I think, pretty much unanimous on the whole Budget Advisory Board. We were very concerned about debt management. Because if the economy keeps going south and indications, everything is up in the air, don't know. If it goes much further south, we're going to have a real challenge paying off our existing debt. So really be very concerned about that. Okay, as far as the individual departments go, our recommendation, we recommended approval on all of them with the following exceptions. 01105, the town manager, we did not recommend approval of that. The reason for that was the increase that was put in for professional development and the pay raises. 01120, the legal department. And what it appears that every year we budget a certain amount, but we spend a whole lot more. We recommend we budget on the best estimate of what we're actually going to spend and not keep going over every year. Let's make it more realistic like we did with a couple other capital projects a while ago. Assessing department, 01145. As far as we can tell, that was not put out to bid, and we believe something like that really needs to be put out to bid to get the best value for our money. The next one, 02200, is the police department. And once again, this was a majority decision. The manpower needs to be further reduced on it. I understand they've already cut back a lot more, but it was recommended that cut it back further. And then finally, 02201, animal control, recommending not approval. We felt that the cell phone upgrade was not something that was necessary, and that was money that we could better spend elsewhere. Granted, it's a drop in the budget compared to the rest of the budget, but pennies add up. And one last thing that we are requesting for these carriers and the carries and transfers, when that data becomes available, please make sure that we get it so we can look at it, because we need to weigh in on that also. Okay? And those are our recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you to the entire advisory board. It's a hard job. Anything further from council before we start here?
I'd like to know how we feel that we can go ahead with this budget and give increases, especially large increases to certain individuals, when people in the community are hurting as much as they are. None of the people on Social Security have gotten a raise since 2008, and we're gonna burden them with paying increases to people in the town. I just think that's totally absurd, and there's no way that I'd ever accept this, ever. I think it's very irresponsible government, and the people in the town are hurting, and we are just laughing in their face, and I think that's wrong.
All right, thank you, Roger. And I disagree with the idea that we're laughing in people's faces. I think we're doing our best to provide a service that we can with money that we have, and it's a difficult times for everyone, including employees and people who use the services too. All right, want to get us started, Twyla?
Sure, we'll begin with elected officials. Line 5100, personnel, 27,930. Line 5200 for contractual services, 4,600, for a total for the elected officials budget, 32,530.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
One second.
All right. Any further discussion on elected officials? All right, we will need a roll call vote.
Vote by roll call. Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yay.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo is
Yes, not here.
absent. 5 yeas and 1 nay. Order passed. Next item,
Yep, go ahead.
Town Manager. Line 5100 for Personnel Services, $126,005. Line 5200 for Contractual Services, $21,750. Line 5300 for Repairs, Maintenance, and Operating Supplies, $700. Total Town Manager's budget, $148,455.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion from council? All right, move
by
to a
roll.
roll call vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed. Contingency, total contingency budget, line 5200 for contractual services, 10,000.
So moved.
Second it.
All right, any further discussion from councilors on that item? All right, we'll move to a roll call.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, no nays, order passed. Insurance, line 5100 for personnel services, $617,673. Line 5200 for contractual services, $71,454. Total insurance budget, $689,127.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
6 yeas and no nays, order passed.
All right.
Legal, total legal budget, line 5,200 for contractual services, 34,000.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion from council? And I understand the advisory board we are coming from, and I think that hopefully we'll look at that in the future for next year and try to get that into line with what we're actually spending. But we'll go to a roll call vote now.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
And Counselor Bowie.
Yay?
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed. Retirement, total retirement budget line 5,100 for personnel services totaling 66,400.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed. Social Security, total Social Security budget, line 5,100 for personnel services, 207,000.
So moved.
Second.
Whatever.
All right.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed. Technology, line 5,100 for personnel services, 1,500. Line 5,200 for contractual services, 75,000. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, 3,000. Line 5,400 for capital purchases for 25,000. Total technology budget, 104,500.
So moved.
Second it.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Roll call, Counselor La Rochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Cody,
Yes.
Counselor Bowie,
Yay?
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
Town buildings, line 5,100 for personnel services, 10,350. Line 5,200 for contractual services, 182,525. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, 47,000. Line 5,400 for capital purchases, 50,000. Total town building budget, $289,875.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
All right. Assessing codes, line 5,100 for personnel services, $80,990. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $83,400. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $600. Total assessing code budget, $164,990.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the vote.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, and next item?
Board of Appeals, line 5,100 for personnel services, $1,450. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $200. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies for $50. Total Board of Appeals budget, $1,700.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item?
Planning Board, line 5,100 for personnel services, $3,300. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $2,450. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, operating supplies, $50. Total Planning Board budget, $5,800.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to just make a notation on this, that the planning board has been working at this rate of pay for an awful long time. And I think that it's unrealistic to expect people to volunteer their time to work on these boards and for what they're being paid. It's almost ludicrous. That doesn't even pay their gas to come to the meetings. I think that that's something in the future we ought to be looking at very carefully. Not an absorbent amount, but they'd have to be taken care of a little better than that.
As a former planning board member, I agree with you. I think we could find a way to increase that a little bit in the future. Any other discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bowe,
Yay.
Counselor Cody,
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
and Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
Code enforcement, line 5100 for personnel services, $38,987. Line 5200 for contractual services, $50. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $500. Total code enforcement budget, $39,537.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the vote.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Cody,
Yes.
Counselor Bowe,
Yay.
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
Finance Department, line 5100 for personnel services, $104,230. Line 5200 for contractual services, $2,500. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $4,650. Total Finance Department budget, $111,380.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bickford? Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
All right, next item.
Tax collector, line 5100 for personnel services, $99,895. Line 5200 for contractual services, $15,500. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $3,500. Total tax collector budget, $118,895.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
All right, next item.
Town clerk elections, 5100 for personnel services, $86,230. Line 5200 for contractual services, $16,730. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $4,200. Line 5400 for capital purchases, $3,000. For a total town clerk election budget, $110,160.
So move.
Second it.
All right, any discussion? All right.
Roll call vote?
Yep.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed. Did you want to do something different at the police
For the
department?
police, right, we have to break it down line by line because Mike has to recuse himself from one of those lines.
All right, line 5100 for personnel services, $815,981.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, we will go to a roll call vote on that line.
Roll call vote. Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
And that's
Abstain.
the one he has to abstain from.
1 abstention?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4 yeas and 1 opposed. Order passed. Would you like to read the rest of the lines together for a total bottom?
Yeah, I believe we can do that, yes. Yep.
All right, so it reads this way, line 5100 for personnel, $815,981. Line 5200 for contractual services, $9,559. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $70,655. Line 5400 for capital purchases, $16,994. Line 5500 for lease purchases, $13,857. For a total police department budget of $927,046. Was Eaton?
So moved.
Second it.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Okay. Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Five yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
All right, next item.
Animal control, line 5100 for personnel services, $56,276. Line 5200 for contractual services, $6,750. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $6,450. Line 5400 for capital purchases, $500, for a total animal control budget of $69,976.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
And Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
Next item.
Police Department Communications, total Police Department communication budget, line 5100, personnel services, $187,596.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
And next item.
Fire Department, line 5100 for personnel services, $194,661. Line 5200 for contractual services, $2,000. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $51,500. Line 5400 for capital purchases, $79,959, for a total fire department budget of $328,120.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
And Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
All right, next item.
Town engineer, line 5100 for personnel services, $19,214. Line 5200 for contractual services, $2,500. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $300. Total town engineer budget, $22,014.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
Next item.
Public Works, line 5100 for personnel services, $417,079. Line 5200 for contractual services, $6,000. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $201,450. Line 5400 for capital purchases, $24,000. Line 5500 for lease purchases, $79,750. For a total Public Works budget of $728,279.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay.
Counselor Bickford?
Yay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Nay.
And Counselor Mason?
Yes.
4 yeas, 2 nays, order passed.
All right, next item?
Winter Public Works, line 5,100 for personnel services, $59,360. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $92,000. For a total winter public works budget of $151,360.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Lunt.
Nay.
Counselor Mason.
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Cody.
Nay.
Counselor Bowie.
Yay?
Counselor Bickford.
Yay.
4 yeas, 2 nays, order passed.
All right, next item?
Solid Waste, line 5,100 for personnel services, $131,093. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $305,900. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $36,350. Line 5,400 for capital purchases, $2,500. Line 5,500 for lease purchases, $14,800. For a total solid waste budget, $490,643.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, we'll move to the vote.
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
Counselor Bowie.
Yay?
Counselor Cody.
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Mason.
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay, order passed.
All right, next item?
Hydrant rental, total hydrant rental budget line 5,200 for contractual services, $292,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Other than I hate it.
Yeah.
I certainly agree with you there, but we don't really have a choice. All right, take a roll call vote, Twyla?
Counselor Mason.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Cody.
Yes.
Counselor Bowie.
Yes.
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
I believe it was 6.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
5,
yeah.
6, yeah.
Got me confused there.
All right, next item?
Street and traffic lights. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $81,000. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $3,000. Total street and traffic lights budget, $84,000.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, any discussion?
We were supposed to work this over the year, and there isn't much happened to it.
We're going to take down some lights if we,
They're scheduled to come down this summer. So this is actually $10,000 less than what you had last
this
year.
year.
We were supposed to just work this quite vigorously, and it kind of fell flat after the
Well-
maps were made, and we never did anything with it.
Well, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Actually, CMP is the one that's holding it up. We submitted their list to them quite a while ago, and they're working on it. That's all we can do. They own the lights.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to a roll call vote then.
Counselor Bowie.
Yay?
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
Counselor Cody.
Yay.
Counselor Mason.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item?
Parks Department, line 5,100 for personnel services, $38,558. Line 5,200 for contractual services, $600. Line 5,300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $5,375. For a total park budget, $44,533.
So moved.
Yep, second.
All right, any further discussion?
This is an area where we need to concentrate on consolidation next year.
Mhm. I agree.
I agree with that.
I think that's definitely some overlap there we can find some savings in.
I think that this is long overdue.
All right, anything further? Okay, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor La Rochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Cody.
Yes.
Counselor Bowie.
Yay?
Counselor Bickford.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item?
Conservation Commission, line 5100 for personnel services, $250. Line 5200 for contractual services, $250. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $75. For a total conservation budget, $575.
So move.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yes, this is another one that I think that we need to look at. If we're gonna bother people to be on the Conservation Committee, we ought to at least reimburse them enough to buy their gas to go back and forth to the meeting. And this is kinda, you know, the total budget of $575 doesn't reflect that very well at all.
I know we have had trouble finding people for some of these boards, so it
Exactly.
wouldn't be very much to even just double that.
I'd just like to add to that, too. Some of these committees, I'd like to know what they've accomplished throughout the year. Some of them, we don't even know what they do. I mean, we have a general idea, but what did they accomplish throughout the year would be interesting.
I think it could be a goal for us this year for at
Yes.
least every counselor to at least go to one of these different committees and make sure we're all very familiar with what they're doing.
I think it would be good if everybody kind of got a little general guideline of what each group is doing, because we can't all make
Right.
every.
All right?
I don't, like Gina said, I don't see why they couldn't give us a yearly review of what they have accomplished.
That's a good
What
idea.
or what we could expect them, from them to.
Right, what they'd like from us to help
Right.
them out.
Right.
I think that would be a good idea, actually.
Workshop.
Yep, all right. Seeing no further discussion, we can move to a vote.
Counselor LaRochelle,
Yes.
Counselor Lunt,
Yes.
Counselor Mason,
Yes.
Counselor Bickford,
Yes.
Counselor Bowe,
Yay?
Counselor Cody.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
Recreation Department, line 5100 for personnel services, $123,042. Line 5200 for contractual services, $8,200. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $24,475, for a total recreation budget of $155,717.
So moved.
Second it.
Any discussion?
Just so I think that, I'd like to give that department an attaboy. I think they've accomplished a lot with what they've got, and I want to just give them an attaboy and wish them the best for the incoming year.
All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, next item.
Library Department, line 5100 for personnel services, $117,387. Line 5200 for contractual services, $4,198. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $37,113, for a total library budget of $158,698.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just one question, Steve. There's safety concerns addressed in their children's area at the library?
Have they been addressed? Yes.
Yes, they have been addressed?
Yep, they were addressed last year.
They did take care of the
Yep,
problem.
Everything is up to
Okay, good.
snuff. Yep.
Okay.
All right, I think they run a very tight ship down there. They do a lot with not a lot of resources, and they really provide a lot of programs for all the kids in town.
Especially when there's children involved, you gotta think of safety issues up front.
Oh, yes. Any further discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item.
Health Officer, line 5100 for personnel services, $9,889. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $550. Total Health Officer budget, $10,439.
So move.
Second it.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Next item.
Community Service, line 5100 for personnel services, $2,700. Line 5200 for contractual services, $26,000. Total community service budget, $28,700.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay?
Counselor
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item?
Miscellaneous public service. For total miscellaneous public service budget, line 5200, contractual services, 12,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item?
General assistance, line 5200 for contractual services, $30,850. Line 5300 for repairs, maintenance, and operating supplies, $300. Total general assistance budget, $31,150.
So moved?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item?
County tax. Total county tax budget, line 5200 for contractual services, $574,198.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Another one we hate.
Absolutely. Oh,
either.
absolutely. Another one that's totally forced on us against our will.
Maybe we ought to have them come back at the end of the year and tell us exactly what they did for us for services.
We'll make that a, part of our arrangement to pay them, right?
There you go.
All right. Move to a vote.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
And Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item?
Abatements. Total abatement budget, line 5200 for contractual services, $10,000.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Yay.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
And Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Next item?
Debt service. Total debt service budget line, 5,500. Lease purchase, $492,126.
So moved?
Second it.
Any discussion?
This represents the results of the bond,
Yes, it does.
the one that was
The
voted
one
down,
Right.
taken out. Okay.
Yes, it does.
I don't think that has much of an adjustment on this
Very
year.
small impact.
So,
Yep. Any further discussion? All right, well, we'll move to a vote then.
One of those that we hate.
Right, again, another one we hate, but, there's things that were useful, or things we purchased. All right, go ahead, Twyla.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
yay?
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed. The Resolution 2010-2011 municipal budget is $6,934,018.
All right.
This would be for the 2011-2012 budget.
Yeah.
I know, I copied that from last year. Sorry about that.
All right. Do we need a resolution to approve that final number too?
This would be the final vote for all
Right.
your
Well,
action.
we're also going to have to vote on economic development too.
That's correct.
That's after.
It's
I believe
after, yes, and it's a separate, because it's funded differently.
So
this is-
moved if we need to vote on it.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, move to a roll call vote.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
No, there's a nay. I believe there was a nay.
Oh, there's one,
It's
yes.
5-1.
5-1, 5-1.
All right.
The 2011-12 budget is passed.
And the next item?
The economic development,
Actually,
as,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the economic development budget will be voted on. It's on the next agenda because this amount, it will be adjusted based on the updated TIF valuation for Dingley. This was based on last year's
Here's
TIF
TIF, okay.
values, which is why it was separate. So I
When,
apologize.
well,
It'll be voted on at the same time as the sewer budget.
Yes.
you'll have no money appropriated that you can spend, starting July 1st.
Till the 5th.
Right, this, I know this isn't coming out of our total budget expense, it's coming out of the TIP funds. But we have to appropriate funds so that you can pay bills and so that you can pay expenses. So we have to vote on a value.
Do we know what that amount is yet?
I believe Bill had mentioned around 101,000. We were going to be looking to cut about 8,000 out of this
I mean,
budget.
what it means is you can't spend any economic development money and you can't pay anything until we vote on the budget.
On the 5th.
We'll vote on the 5th, correct?
You'll vote on the 5th.
We have a meeting on the 5th.
We have a meeting on the 5th. And that should be fine.
If you can get by for 4 days, 5 days,
Actually, 2 days.
2 days,
Kind of tough with Moxie.
with Moxie.
That's kind of tough with Moxie.
Would it be unreasonable to use could you actually get that dedicated number so we could vote on it before the end of this meeting?
I would have to
Yeah.
get the numbers from Bill.
Yeah.
I believe on our last workshop, he said the Dingley valuation was around 101,000. I don't know if it's possible to do an amendment on
can we
July 5th
designate
if we...
Can we have an emergency meeting next week on Tuesday, just to vote for that?
Hang on a second,
All right.
let me ask another stupid question.
Why can't we appropriate $10,000 to
If
do it?
you're saying the TIF value is worth 111,000,
101.
No,
right?
100
101.
101,000.
Around that, if I remember.
We couldn't appropriate 109.
That's correct.
because that doesn't exist, all the
Right.
value there, right?
So we could appropriate, we could vote to appropriate 101,000 tonight.
What happens if
Would it be
comes under
possible to
that?
actually,
If it what?
Comes under.
We just couldn't spend
What
it.
if we go for
can't spend it.
90,000?
Yeah.
Then we can redo it.
Can
What's that, Ron?
Can I just
Like,
ask
when we
a
appropriate
question?
90,000 and then do the rest of it, the following, next meeting?
Chair?
I don't
Go
know,
ahead.
I mean.
I just
Sorry.
have, I'm
Hold on a minute,
sorry,
guys.
I probably should have known this beforehand, but how does it work then with the sewer budget, since that typically does not get voted on until September? But we still pay bills and appropriate funds until that budget gets voted on?
Are they on a different fiscal year?
Yeah,
Mm.
they are.
I
Okay,
think they're on
I'm
a
sorry.
different fiscal.
Okay,
year.
apologize.
Could,
Sure.
is it possible to actually amend this to the point of just putting to the amount of the TIF, calculated TIF value, so it actually, we're not actually picking the dollar value, but we actually, it is going to be a dedicated number.
I
but-
know it's around 101,000, so
Yeah.
you could actually vote not to exceed 102,000.
I think we have to have a specific number, so.
You can't say something like not to exceed the TIF value. Is that possible?
I'm not a lawyer, I don't really know for certain is our lawyer here.
Tyler's close enough.
He's late.
Not here yet, no.
Roger, come in.
Is he in the hallway? Yep, we'll wait.
We'll wait a minute for him. Hurry up, Roger, we need you.
He's coming in the camera.
Roger.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can take a 2-minute break while we wait for him.
Turn the air conditioning up.
It's warm.
It's been a long day.
Anyone do a song and dance routine for a minute while we're waiting here?
We can move on to the other item.
We could.
can,
Yeah,
yes.
we can go on to the other items and come back. That's probably the smartest thing to do. All right.
Well, I mean, just on the other items in the agenda,
And, right.
and
Do
then
you-
come back to this last.
Right.
Under other business,
Yeah.
finance director's report?
Jessica, why don't you give us your finance report?
Trying to get the air on for you, but...
While we're waiting for the lawyer, you can give us your finance director's report.
Sure. All right, looking at revenues, excise tax is approximately 88% collected. Last year, for the month of May, we took in around 120,000. This year, we've taken in 139,000 for the month of May. Compared to last year at this time, we've taken in 13,000 more year-to-date. In order to meet our current budget, we'd have to bring in $143,000 in the month of June, which is slightly above our 5-year average for the month of June of $141,000. So close. We'll see how it plays out. State revenue sharing is 92% collected, with another $86,000 that came in during May. To achieve our budget of $750,000, we would need to bring in $60,000 for the month of June, which is not unattainable. So we should have no problem making that. The month of May brought in another $103,000 for the Betty reimbursement and $25,000 for the Urban Rural Incentive Program, which is approximately $11,000 under collected. You will see these numbers reflected in the year-to-date column when you review your June financial package. An entry did not get made in time. The public safety revenues will be trued up and more in line with budget after year end as we bill the appropriate towns for the actual expenses incurred once those are finalized. The transfer station brought in another $7,000 for the month of May. We are now 90% collected at a year-to-date total of $113,000. We should be right on budget with these revenues for year end. We are over 125% collected on our parks and recreation revenue. The month of May brought in another $1,000 in the before and after school care programs through the rec department, as well as $1,000 in Beaver Park fees, primarily due with the fishing derby. As of May 31st, we were 95% collected on our total tax commitment for the year, which is right about where we were at this point last year. As a final reminder to the remaining citizens who have not paid their taxes as of yet, interest will be applied to their account after June 30th. Do you have any questions on revenue?
So how close do you think we're gonna be at the end of the day, plus and minus on everything?
In regards to revenues?
Yeah.
Revenues, we will be short alone on the tax commitment of $254,000 based on the tax issues earlier in the year, so.
So when I look at the bottom line, final totals, right? Budgeted 7.3 million. And year-to-date, we're at 6.4. And we need to get about another almost 900,000.
Yep.
How close are we gonna get to the 900? I mean, I'm not asking for an exact number.
No, I know.
Do you feel comfortable?
I'm expecting we'll probably be around 400,000 short.
So what does that do to us?
We'll still look to carry
Carry
about,
forward some amounts.
what's that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, in comparison with the expenses, we'll still have a net to surplus. I'm estimating around 130,000.
That's after covering that 400?
Part of the revenue, part of the reason I'm saying the 400,000 is because one of the line items is the 250,000 for the use of surplus, and we haven't booked that entry yet. So, I mean, I kind of view that as a use of funds should you need it, and we haven't used it.
So you haven't booked
No.
the 250
Correct.
for that, for a
For the
revenue
use of
number
surplus,
yet?
correct. If,
Okay.
with that, we will only be about maybe 250 shy in revenues. But I didn't see the need to book
Okay.
that. I mean, it's, you're taking from one hand to put in the other. I didn't see
Okay.
the need to book it unless we were in
It makes me feel a little better.
a need of,
Not a lot, but a little.
any further questions? Looking at the expense side, we'll be overdrafted in some capacity due to the following items. Issues with the MTM roof repairs, legal fees, well contamination, winter sand salt purchases, as well as some other minor areas. And these, for the most part, will be offset by under expenditures in other areas. As discussed earlier, in part with the carries and transfers, I see no reason to believe we wouldn't carry around 130 to surplus. So unless you have any specific questions for me, hopefully the detail was a sufficient
Yes, I
breakout.
was just gonna say, I like that detailed summary sheet. I thought that was very helpful and very good.
It's Excel-based, so very consuming to put in, but glad to do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, yes, we'll go back to finish up the budget item that we're
This is a
Discussing.
question for our attorney, Mr. Terry. Roger?
spotlights on you.
Plus spotlights on you. The Economic Development Department is being funded through the Dingley TIF, and the original TIF amount total that we could expend was $110,000. It has now been, Bill gave a updated number recently, which didn't get on this sheet, and we can only spend approximately $101,000 because of a change in the TIF. So what we're looking for is how do we do that tonight without having an exact number, so we can put this to rest, and by June or July 1, we'll be able to expend funding.
Can I ask a question slightly different?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do we have to appropriate funds tonight or prior to July 1st in order to pay or do anything with the economic development starting July 1st?
Yeah, there has to be an appropriation in place on July 1st in order to fund the department. Otherwise, you can't spend any money for that category.
So if there's not an appropriation, so if having to have an appropriation in place and us not knowing the exact amount today, and we don't have another meeting scheduled until after the 1st of July.
You
Is
have
there
a
a way
meeting,
for us
you have
to-
a meeting next week where you could put an agenda item on if you needed to. We have a workshop, I think. So you could handle it. Let me see if I can lend a little bit of clarity. Your appropriation is 110. That's what you've determined is the appropriate number to run that department, okay? You had intended to fund it out of the TIF revenue for this year. That's going to be short about $9,000. So I think what you need to do, if you want to deal with it tonight, is to adjust your revenue numbers, to take that $9,000 out of some other source, undesignated surplus, taxes, whatever it might be. But your problem isn't on the expenditure side, your problem's on the revenue side, and that's where you've got to deal with it. Because you've got to balance your budget with basically an amount of revenue that corresponds to what you're appropriating. So somewhere on the expenditure side, well, do you?
But we don't vote on revenue.
Right.
Let me, okay, then I don't think that it matters at this point, because what's going to happen down the road is that you're going to, I presume, vote to expend your TIF revenue at some point.
I think we already.
Yeah, we already authorized it.
Okay, but you're short. Hello. You're right, it's a revenue issue. Or perhaps something else. It's a revenue issue, and I think.
He was bleeping you out, Roger.
And rightfully so, probably.
Right.
No, I think it's a revenue issue, and what's going to happen is there will be an adjustment made when you do your tax commitment as to how that gets funded. It's part of your budget on the
Either-
expenditure side.
Right, we either have to adjust the revenues
Right.
or we have to spend less.
Right.
So they could vote on the 109,000.
We could appropriate the 109,000 tonight
Yes.
and make the necessary adjustment.
Yeah, you'd have some choices when it comes time to fund it as to how you're going to deal with that shortfall.
Or we could just fund it at 101,000 and find out how to,
And realistically, until he commits taxes, you don't really know
That's right.
what the TIF amount is. We just happen to know what we're going to commit. So
Yeah, and there'd
normally
be,
you would not.
exactly, and there'd be some options at that point as to how you want to fund it, or whether you simply want to reduce your appropriations by that amount. or some combination thereof.
I'd make a motion, or how we want to do it, to actually move forward with the figure that we have figured right now at 109,157, and then when it moves forward, that the funding isn't there, we can actually adjust it. Just so we have monies in place to carry forward until July 1st.
That
Happy
dollar
about
amount is
that.
still the amount that needs to be expended. But we're gonna have to move some of it someplace else, because we don't have the TIF revenue to fund the whole thing. So you're gonna have to make an adjustment once the tax commitment's made and the TIF amount is known, right? But the expenditure side doesn't change. You still have to expend that 109,157, that's the budget. But we're just gonna have to move it someplace else.
You have to find additional $8,000 or so somewhere.
Why can't we alter that?
Well, it's,
Get it back.
To what?
Why can't we cut that budget?
We could. How much would it be? Do we have the flexibility there to go lower?
Really, no.
Yeah.
I'm just having trouble with the moving. I'm not understanding the move piece. I thought you said, Roger, it was a revenue item.
It is.
So that means we have to project more revenue than what we currently are, or do we project,
Well, your revenues are all estimates anyway,
right?
okay? I mean, you don't know how much you're gonna have to raise for taxes, because that's dependent on what your assessment's going to be.
Right.
And all of your other revenue figures, your revenue sharing, your excise tax,
Right.
all that stuff is all estimates until you get to your commitment. So at that point in time, you'll know whether or not there are funds there to do that. If there aren't, then there are adjustments that can be made in those revenue numbers that will make sure that you have estimated revenue enough to cover all of your appropriations. It's not an expenditure issue. It's an issue that's going to get sort of thrashed out at the point in time when you do your commitment and decide what your tax levy is going to be.
So, Chair, may I?
Yes.
What they'll, from what I see, is the idea of, once we actually vote on it as an expenditure, when they calculate that into the tax commitment, basically the overlay or whatever the difference, that balancer at the end is gonna be $8,000 different. I mean, that's basically where it
There'll
comes.
be an $8,000 adjustment to the revenue side.
Yes. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you.
Is that going to impact taxes?
No. You're still expending the same amount of money that you need to operate. The only difference is that funding, that revenue to make that department run is gonna come from someplace else within the revenue side. That's all.
And that can legally happen? Sure.
Yeah, you can amend it once you get ready to commit.
Amend, well, I guess what I'm just want to make sure we cover all the bases on is, right, we had to go to the state to get approval to do this, right? To use TIF funding to support the economic development expenditures.
Right.
Right, so we're using TIF revenue to cover that. I guess I'm just want to make sure we can legally use another revenue projected type number to cover that, where it was specifically carved out to come from TIF only.
Yeah,
Doesn't break any rules.
my understanding would be that the TIF money could only go to fund this department, but you could, if you decided as a council, we wanted to spend $200,000 on economic development, we would be legally allowed to do that. We would just only get the TIF money, could only
That's
go
right,
into
you're only gonna
that.
get what the TIF money provides.
Right, it directs that money to someplace, but doesn't say you can't spend more than that out of your own other tax revenues.
Just to muddy the waters a little more. If you had more TIF revenue than the 109 or 101, whatever it happens to be, you couldn't spend that generally on your budget. The reason you can do it for economic development is that that is classified as, by the state, under the statute, as a project cost.
Right.
Okay? So you can do that. So if you want to spend more, you can always spend more above what the TIF allocation is. But you can't spend the TIF allocation if it's excessive on something else that's not a project cost.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to accept it as the amount that's written there. Do we have any second on that?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion from council? All right, move to a roll call.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowe?
Yay.
Counselor Cody?
Nay.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
And Counselor Mason?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 nay. Order passed. $109,157.
All right, and next item, Twyla?
Is under B.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can
go
I
ahead.
just make sure that when we go commit taxes, that we look at what that actual number is, and we can keep that in front of us?
Mark?
Yes.
I'd just like to say something. I'd like to thank everybody who is involved with the budget. It wasn't easy, and I want to thank the department heads, the advisory board. You had some really good suggestions, and I appreciate that. Things oftentimes look black and white, and when you get into them, they're very gray. It's very difficult sometimes when you sit on one side of the fence to think that things can be cut and it affects nothing. That's not true. We have citizens we have to satisfy with what's the services they want. And then on the other hand, we have to try to make a reasonable budget. And I think we've tried to do that this year. And thank you to all that were involved.
I think that's well-deserved, because there's a lot of work put in this year's budget, and a
Was.
lot of pain by a lot of people. So.
I want to also third that. I think it was a very difficult process, and I congratulate everyone involved, and hope we can try to move forward with that. Next item, Twyla?
Town managers report.
Just to kind of review what I have, Route 9, the Upland Roads, both K&K and Gendron are expecting to finish their projects on time, which is a good thing to hear, because I'm tired of traveling Route 9 with all the construction, and I'm sure
Tired of
you're
living
very...
on Route 9 with all the construction.
Yes.
Also, the workshop, I'm going to try to get you as much material as I can before Friday. We'll be looking at roads. I have a list of roads that, and the people who live on those roads, so you'll be able to process that, along with maps of what those roads look like. So hopefully you'll be able to digest that and be ready for the discussion on the 28th. Also, we're putting together some of the older charter amendments that we had started looking at before, and we only got through a few of them. We're going to put those back on the table, and just so you can discuss them briefly if we have time. And there are also some ordinance things that we never really got back to, like the property maintenance stuff and things like that. And there's been some requests for sign ordinance adjustments. So there's quite a lot of stuff we can do to get started on the workshops, and then hopefully work into goal setting and get you as much information as I can, so think on that. On the wellhead protection ordinance, a bunch of us met with Ferg Lee, John Potvin, to go through all the recommendations that were made by the Water Department. Attorney Ken Gray is here tonight. He represents Maine Electronics, and he would like to address the council. I thought the letter had been put into their packets. It was not, but I'm glad he's here tonight so he can address, if you will let him, the council, their concerns mostly about Section 14, which was the section about look at what I'm looking for, and the planning board and Roger are looking for tonight, is kind of an idea of what direction you would like us to take that. Do you want to just make every project that is in question come before the planning board, or do you want somebody from the town to question, since it is our ordinance, it would have to come from the town somewhere, either the planning board chair or the engineer or me, to whether this project needs further review. Okay, that's kind of, I'm looking for direction for that, so we can get that back to the planning board for next Thursday. They have a meeting, and they're going to discuss it more. We're looking for direction, I guess is what we're looking for. And if Mr. Gray would like to speak,
I'll certainly allow that, yeah.
so, and address his concerns. He and Roger have been going back and forth on these things, so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eldridge. Councilors, thank you for the opportunity to address you. We've actually been trying to work with the planning board since 2007 when the wellhead protection ordinance first surfaced, and it didn't have the provisions in footnote 14 that it now has. Main Electronics has been for the last 2 decades in the business of cleaning up the property at Main Electronics and has spent somewhere in the neighborhood of in excess of $2 million doing the cleanup. And the question that we keep scratching our heads about in footnote 14 is why would anyone want to burden or prevent a cleanup activity on the property when our activities are not going to have any impact beyond the property and certainly none on the aquifer beyond the property. And so we understand and appreciate the difference between protecting the aquifer and saying you shouldn't put an auto body shop there or tanks over there. That makes perfect sense, and frankly, if this ordinance had been in place, I wouldn't be here because the aquifer wouldn't have been contaminated. Things were legal at that point and no one understood the connection. We're at the point now where we're trying to clean up the aquifer, and we understand it so well that the pilot tests last year, we could tell we were not having an impact 20 yards away from where we were treating the aquifer, much less even at the property boundary. The ordinance, and I believe the planning board's heart is in the right place, the ordinance before you attempts to strike a balance between requiring everything to come to the planning board and requiring everything to be reviewed by the town engineer. And what we'd like to do is actually simplify it and just take a concept which was originally introduced to me by Roger Terrio, which is if you're not having an impact beyond the property boundary, you shouldn't have to worry much about having to go through the planning board. So our request is that you give some guidance to the planning board to exclude the remedial activities which don't have an impact beyond the property boundary and certainly don't have an impact beyond the aquifer, into the aquifer. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have just maybe one basic question. How do we assure that we're not going beyond the property line?
Absolutely a fair question. The only way to do that is to have an extensive monitoring well network. And now there are over 20 monitoring wells on the property. But to even get to change any aspect of our remediation, we have to have our hydrogeologists approve that, and then we have to convince the DEP. And their focus is not only on cleanup, but they are absolutely against having any impacts beyond the property boundary. So we have to run that gauntlet twice, and what we're asking for is if once we run that gauntlet and get the DEP approval, especially since they'd be telling us to go do the activity, to allow us to go ahead and do that and not worry about having the planning board say, no, we don't think that's such a great idea. So it's absolutely the right question. And if we didn't have the confidence that we knew where our activities did and did not impact, we wouldn't suggest that as an alternative.
Any further questions? Anything else? Richard, go ahead.
I just want to kind of frame the issue that we're looking for some guidance on and give you a little bit of background about the processes that this has gone through and what the concerns were. Remediation activities, especially where they're DEP licensed, EPA licensed, are complicated. The planning board felt that they did not necessarily, among the board, have the expertise to actually go through and properly review this type of information. Obviously, somebody needs to determine whether there's an impact or whether there isn't. So we were attempting to create an exception where it could be demonstrated that there is no impact, so that they don't have to go through. Main Electronics probably will be the one that will be most affected by this, but they won't have to go through that third level of review if, in fact, it doesn't matter. We're not confident that DEP has the town's best interest. Perhaps they do, perhaps they don't. But there needs to be a mechanism to review and create an exception, and that's what we've tried to do. And the question before you guys is, are we on the right direction here? Does this make sense for the town of Lisbon to do that from the realm of requiring everything to go through planning board approval or exempting everything. We tried to create a middle ground so that we would know a little bit better what needed to go through and what didn't. And we created a peer review process where the town engineer gets first crack at this. And if he's satisfied, then fine. If he's not, then he calls in the experts, and we get a decision if it's necessary as far as that's concerned. But that was the approach generally that we were looking at. And I think what we would like to know is if, I mean, I heard some feedback last time when you looked at this saying, wait a minute, we need to be sure what's going on here. And that's why we wanted to come back to you to see if this is the kind of approach that you think is appropriate for the town, or should we go off in another direction on this? So I just wanted to frame the question.
Chairman?
Go ahead, Frank.
A couple things. One is, the project you have going is ongoing. It's been going for quite some time as far as the cleanup itself. It's not a new project. Now, when actually things happen and say you actually change the scope of your cleanup, I know in the past where we've seen different activity there that we ask questions of Steve, and usually that there's an answer for it. When you're actually doing different activities, is that somehow reported to the town at this point prior to starting those activities? Or I'm just wondering how that process is happening now. I assume when we see big buoys and different things out on the river or by the property and we ask Steve what's going on, he usually says, this is what they're doing. I'm sure there's a process in place for the town, either the code enforcement or someone, to be informed of if there is a change in the scope of the activities of before what they were before. Does that make any sense? I mean,
Yes.
there has to be something in place right now that's happening.
There are two things in place. One is the DEP license, and we cannot vary from the DEP license without their permission. So when we proposed to do the pilot test that we did last year, we went to the DEP and said, do you approve of it? And after, putting us through our paces, it took about a year, we convinced them that this was something that was worth trying. As it turned out, it didn't work. But we're still at it. And so we are trying to make improvements and make the aquifer cleanup faster. And one of the concerns, obviously, is that we dampen it. The second is, because the activities are in the shoreland zone down there, we have to go to the planning board anyway. We are not afraid to go to the planning board. That's not the question. The question is whether the remedial activities, the substantive cleanup activities, are those that automatically ought to go either to the town engineer process or to the planning board as a whole. And what we propose to do is if we can show that we have no impact beyond the property boundary or no impact on the aquifer, that we avoid the process and say, we're going to do something good here, please let us go. We understand and appreciate that you need to prevent accidents from happening, but here are the doctors in the emergency room trying to do the operation, and you've got somebody saying, wait a minute, we want to watch what you're doing and maybe tell you not to do it. And that puts us in a very difficult position.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm assuming out of all of the efforts that you go through in these, that you produce some type of weekly, monthly status report, quarterly status report or whatever on how your progress is and how it's functioning?
Well, the short answer is yes, we report to the DEP on first of all, we have to get approval before we do it,
Right.
and then we report back to them on what we do. For example, when we proposed to amend, when in the license application, when we said we want to do certain pilot tests, that license went to the planning board and to the water district, and there were zero comments on that at all. There were no comments from anybody, and we would have been happy if someone had gotten involved in any of those processes, but nobody did. And so that's why we're kind of mystified as to why there is a very significant ordinance here that tries to get at remediation when there's really been no issue that we know of, or no issue of concern that we know of for our activities.
Yes, I want to say, I think that people in the community, I don't think are targeting main electronics specifically. I think it's more people are worried about new construction or something that might be a threat there. If, the town engineer could sign off on it all by himself, I think that's where the worry is, that, I'd prefer to see like a two-man thing there, like if the town engineer and the code enforcement officer were to both agree, that at least would prevent people from thinking it's just the town engineer, can decide all on his own.
I think
Yes.
what's important is that we need to understand as a community, as a council, that when we have cleanup activity requirements and when they're within the property boundary, we just need to make sure that we're following the rules. We need some type of update or notification or whatever that these processes are taking place and that, you know, they're in line with the laws and regulations. I mean, I don't know that we need to scrutinize them all, but we need to be aware that they're being adhered to, right? So that we know that the town's not being jeopardized in any way.
Roger, you had a comment?
The one concern that comes forth for me is why the water commissioners are not involved in that. They have to answer to all water issues in the community. They have to take care of water samples in the community. They have to do everything that has to do with the water in the community, and when we deal with water issues, we cut them out. They should be the forerunners of anything that happens with the water in this community. And I don't understand why we keep bypassing the water commissioner. They are elected bodies that have been dealing with water for the past umpteen years.
Do you want to
2
speak to
points.
that?
Let me respond to that. The Note 14 requires that all of the material that is filed with the town is sent immediately to the planning, to the water board. So they have the same information that the town has and can deal with it in whatever manner that they deem appropriate. If they think it's a problem, then they can notify the engineer, bring in their own expert. I mean, they have all of the same information. So nobody's keeping the water board in the dark on this. They're a participant in this process. They do not administer the ordinance, okay? That's up to the planning board. So they can't get involved in that, but they are a party in interest to that process, and they can insert themselves at any point in time that they wish. Secondly, you said something about the town engineer signing off. That would only apply for remediation-type activities. This isn't a carte blanche for anything else. This applies only to remediation situations. And the reason that we're using the town engineer is we need somebody with some level of expertise that none of us have, and as far as I know, nobody on the planning board has, to give this an initial review and not necessarily sign off, but just make sure, as Mike has said, that there isn't anything untoward here or anything that's going to damage the aquifer or any of that sort of situation.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Gina?
I'd just like to say that it seems that we're referring to the professionals anyway, who is DEP and any other agencies that this gentleman is dealing with. So it just seems to add another layer at a town level is ridiculous. It's just more red tape, more regulation. When you have the supreme authority, let's call them that, DEP, saying what can't, well, why is that, Roger?
Because even our own town attorney just admitted that they're not necessarily looking in our best interest.
Well, I don't believe that they're going to allow something to happen generally that would affect our water and not care about it, Roger. That's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. So what I'm saying is, to add all these layers of protection with a planning board that will willingly say, we're not experts, we don't know, is ridiculous.
I can tell you that when it comes to the people of this community and their water, and I'm on a well, you're on a well, these people depend on that aquifer. And this is very dear to their hearts. And if you do anything at all to that aquifer, God help you, because these people know where their water is going to be coming from. It's going to be coming from Lake Aubingina. And that's why people are very, very concerned, and they do not trust DEP.
So who should we trust, Roger?
There are professionals out there that do know.
Right, but the problem is the planning board are not professionals,
And that's my point.
I was
The
on the
planning
planning
board
board
is
and
not
dealt
a
with
professional.
one of these, and, there's so much technical information you get this packet of technical information, and if you're not an engineer, you really don't know what to do with it, because it's, it's not put in layman's terms, really.
I think it seems like we're just kind of throwing caution to the wind and whatever. Well, that's not so, because there's some sort of regulation there. There's some way that this is being regulated and being allowed to do or not to do. So to put it in the hands of the planning board and/or any other board in this town who is not a professional of any sort is just an extra layer that's ridiculous. That's my opinion.
Would you like to take the podium?
Is that okay?
Yes, certainly, go ahead.
Hi, Celine Goddard from Lisbon Falls. Mr. Gray, you represent Maine Electronics, and I understand Maine Electronics has already failed this town for keeping clean water. You've already spent $2 million, you just stated. We spent over $3 million for a new water filter system. This footnote number 14 is requesting removing our water department specialists as well as our planning board people who sit on committees for a reason. We put them there. Why would we ever want to remove them from reviewing, especially our wellhead water areas? And in addition to that, you're requesting that we instruct or have our engineer, who is a mechanical engineer, I believe, not a civil engineer, who is not authorized to handle, he's not a geologist either, that we would bypass our two most important departments. And why do we have them if we're not going to use their expertise? Even if they can't have the answers, they should be always reviewing them and having an opportunity to get their information together to protect us better from what Maine Electronics has already done. And I find it more concerning that the town attorney would allow wordage to be put into a contractual agreement for a wellhead area that may create a negative impact on this town, and that you would allow that, sir.
Thank you.
May I add?
Go ahead, Fern.
Part of the wordage was, even sitting through the water department meeting, a lot of it was just the idea of not so much what needed to be done or that it would be overdone. Matter of fact, the chair, or the manager of the water department thought it should be just summed up very briefly in a one-sentence type thing where, not going through all the legal information, but basically the idea that it needs to be looked on beyond more. Part of that, if you look into the wording of it, it isn't just something that was thrown in paper. Part of it was actually put in for pretty much detail to protect the town. Our town engineer, actually, that we have, does have a lot of background in groundwater. Being part of his main duty as far as being with sewage treatment, he's actually dealt with DEP for spillage and water issues in the past, and is very familiar with the process on contamination and how it's listed and how it needs to be dealt with and how to monitor it. So, as of the town, Ryan's probably dealt with more contamination in groundwater than probably anybody else, because that's basically his dealings, and we've had some pretty substantial issues down at the other end of town as far as for contamination that DEP's been involved with, which basically was kind of added from our own town operations. So, I don't think you can throw away the idea of Ryan's expertise when it comes to the idea of dealing with DEP and dealing with groundwater and dealing with potential problems as far as for contamination. Does there need to be some type of protection there for the town? Absolutely. I think that's why this is moved forward, just to find out the right level and find out make sure it isn't redundant and make sure that it is worked properly. I don't think there was any intention to exclude anybody or put in anybody else's hands. I think the idea way was worded, and I think it could be shortened up quite a bit just to make sure that we actually have, as Mike said, someone overviewing it and us documenting it to the point where knowing what's happening. I think if we can answer to the idea that we knew something was happening and that we actually had all the proper items in place to justify or actually approve, not so much approve, but actually just have a handle on what's happening and did it work and did it not work. I think that would be great. It is quite a burden to put onto the planning board, the idea of something that's coming forward and actually have people, as you say, underpaid people actually trying to make big decisions. I think there are people in town that have the expertise, or if they don't have the expertise, have the ability to get the expertise needed to make sure this has been monitored properly.
Mm-hmm. Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's very important that people understand that our department heads, they know their limitations, and I think just with the salt on Route 9, we didn't depend upon our engineer to make the decision that there was an issue there and how we were going to correct it. We went out and we hired a geologist to do some of our work because that's their specialty. And I think you have to recognize the fact that we bring in the experts quite often on a lot of projects that we know we don't have the expertise to handle or to identify. And that's where the engineer comes in. He understands the scientific data. He works with the water department on a regular basis, water and sewer. I think, from my perspective, what I would expect from my department heads is that they're going to sit down with the right people and make informed decisions. And if they don't have the right people, they're going to go out and find the right people. And it's going to be a joint decision in the end.
Ma'am, if you'd like to speak, take the podium, but please don't attack any
I'll be
officials
brief.
or, employees of the town, all
I
right?
won't-
Okay.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to mention that I did call Mark Stebbins from our DEP
Mm-hmm.
department, and we talked about the well test sites that he currently monitors, and they only monitor for contaminated well sites. They don't go in the perimeters and check to make sure, as a proactive
Mm-hmm.
measure, to make sure that things are in good condition or prevent them from happening. And I think we're in this situation because things weren't done that way. So I don't look at it that, our engineer isn't as an important person, but I think that we, one, would want to go to our water department people as specialists in water, even if they can't handle it as a whole, that they'd have a backup from our planning board people, as a group. And you put a lot of heads together making informed decisions, as well as, bringing the different issues in front of your council. I think as a group, our town could certainly be proactive in taking better care of our water source than what is done in the past. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. Fillmore, go ahead.
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I want to know if we knew before we started this meeting, because we invited these gentlemen in here, that we were going to have this discussion. Why isn't the Water Commission, the Water Department here to have a say in this too? We got Planning Board, we got the lawyers, we got everything. Why wasn't the Water Department? They're supposed to be our experts when it comes to water.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Yes.
The question, I think, is, does this town want to have an additional process to go through? The two processes that we go through now are, one, with the DEP, which provides notice to the Water Department, and we often also come to the Planning Board for specific approvals when we have to put in monitoring wells, for example, down in the shoreland zone. Do you know how many comments that we have gotten in any of those processes? None. We have notified the Water Department, and they have expressed no concern. We encourage people to get involved in those processes. The question is whether there should be another one, and that's what concerns us.
Thank you. How does the board feel? Any opinions?
I feel that the water department should be involved in water issues at any meeting about it moving forward, and let them put in, because the townspeople have a security in their water people. They elected these people because they trust and they want to know what their opinion is about every issue when it comes to water. And why those people are not here tonight, or aren't here whenever we're discussing the wellhead protection, it bothers the citizens of this community.
Well, it should also bother them that they didn't provide any feedback to any of the requests that came from Maine Electronics.
Right, that's right.
And going through these, or they didn't answer any responses to BEP, right? So, I mean, if all of that information's going on, then I don't think our commissioners are doing their job, right? I mean, if
Well,
they're
I-
not providing that feedback back, and
If you're kept under a mushroom, Mike, it's hard to
it's not
thrive.
it's not through us. It's at DEP, and Maine Electronics provides that information to them.
Oh.
If they're not responding to it,
Well,
and
they're
we're
not,
not responding to it from a planning board, then it's shame on us. We have a responsibility to manage this community through the departments that we have in this community to cover those things. So if we're not doing our job, what is putting another layer on top of things doing that? Now, do I still think we should get a status update to make sure things are still operating correctly and following those? Absolutely. I think that should still happen. But I think there's processes in place that invoke the town's requirement to make sure that our processes, procedures, and ordinances are being followed within the guidelines of what they were written, and maybe we're not doing our job.
well, I think that the people of this community are very satisfied with their water commissioners, and they do take the water commissioners' opinions very deeply, and I think that should be given they should be given that
I
opportunity.
don't disagree with you at all, but they are given the opportunity. That's what bothers me. They're given the opportunity through the licensing process to go do this stuff. In order for them to get their permits, the planning board and the water department are notified. It's a requirement of that process.
And if they didn't respond, they was probably satisfied.
Well,
Then-
hello.
Then why are we?
Then what's the
not-
problem?
Then why are we putting a
Well,
third
let's
layer
let
on
them
it?
make that determination.
John, do you have something you'd like to say?
I do. John Potvin, Planning Board Chairman. Roger, you were at the Water Commission meeting last week with me.
Yes, I was.
Fern was also there. As I said at that meeting, and people here weren't there, so they didn't hear that, the Water Commission was notified of all our workshops and planning board meetings we had where we discussed the wellhead. The first time Mr. Adams came out was to present the ordinance to begin with. He didn't come back out till we presented it to council. We had 6 meetings on it, several workshops, all of which he was notified ahead of time and couldn't be bothered to show up. Now, that coming in after the house is built and saying you don't like the way the bathroom looks is a bit late. Now, based on that meeting last week, we're having a planning board meeting Thursday night and discussing this wellhead protection again. What we're looking for now, as Mr. Terrio said, is guidance. What do you want us to do about footnote 14? Plain and simple. Hopefully, someone from the Water Commission will show up.
They will be there. I'll assure you of that.
But to say they weren't notified, that's garbage. They knew right along. They couldn't be bothered to show up.
I would like them to make the determination on that.
But the hardest thing is, Roger, if I could, it's the ordinance that actually is a town ordinance, it's a council ordinance. It's actually, we actually have to not only justify its meaning, but actually be the bearers of it later on. We actually have to monitor it. It's the full control of the town to actually monitor this ordinance. It's not a water department ordinance, so it is true for us, for them to actually approach us to talk about the wordage of it. It isn't like we're just going to rubber stamp it moving forward. The process where the water department had a concern about it, it actually came back and Steve reviewed it. Steve reviewed it, Roger, and all parties in place. And they're merely just coming back to us with a courtesy of saying, what do you think we need to move forward? So the next step can be the idea of the planning board working on it and bring the water department in. I mean, this isn't really an override step that we're doing tonight. This is merely professional courtesy for people coming forward to ask questions so we can actually try to help the process move forward. I don't think that anything that we're doing tonight is trying to be, behind the scenes or underhanded. It's more the idea of trying to get the best information we can. I assume from the way that was added in, that initially the way it was written, the initial wellhead, it really didn't have a lot of these extras added into it. Then through the process, people had concerns, so a lot got added back in. There was reasons for that, but I think what happened at the end of the day was when a little bit was asked for, a lot got put in, and now they're trying to figure out how that all plays out. So again, I don't think it would be underhanded. I think the idea that we're just doing a process that any ordinance would do. And, tonight, at least we have the opportunity to talk to the people involved, and hopefully we can give guidance to Steve and the planning board to work with the water department.
John, as chairman of the planning board, how do you feel would it impact you and your board for working with this ordinance? Would you prefer to be involved directly, or do you think it's better off to involve the engineer first and have him only decide when you are pulled in? What's your preference?
Honestly, I don't have a preference, Mark. I want to do what's right for the town, and if it eases concerns to have us involved right away, that's fine. But like Gina said, we're not experts. I'm not a hydrogeologist, I'm a computer programmer. You want me to write you a program, I can do that. You want me to read a geology report, out of my element. Either way, doesn't matter to me. We want to do what's going to protect the town water, and we want to do the right thing, which is what we presented to you. We tried to come up, we put our best foot forward after several meetings and hours upon hours of work. And like I just said, the Water Commission, had they been involved right along, would have been great. They weren't. If they had that much for concerns, it would have been nice if they had come. Now, having gone to the meeting, a lot of their concerns were valid. And we looked at, I went through the ordinance and footnoted some stuff, and we're going to be making some changes based on their recommendations. It just would have been nice to do that before we submitted it to you.
I agree with you on that. I think it would. It's always good to involve ourselves early on in those processes when we have a concern.
I guess we're just looking for some guidance, and like I said, we're having a regular meeting on Thursday night. We don't have a public meeting, but anybody's welcome to come in and weigh in on it. It'd be great.
All right, how does the council feel on this? What do we want to do?
We ought to push it into the planning board meeting.
May I,
Yes,
Mark,
go
ma'am,
ahead.
who is the one that actually put together the wordage for that section? Was that?
Or footnote 14?
Yes,
Was that you and Mr. Gray? That was-
Mostly me.
Oh, was it for?
Roger's a better drafter than me.
I mean, it would be nice, and even as, my opinion is the same as yours as the planning board when stuff comes forward. I mean, I would like to think that the people that originally put that together, that tried to find a happy medium, would look at it again and just make sure that, again, have the professionals that understand the wordage of it and the documents of why that was originally constructed the way it was, and can it be actually rewritten to be a little bit more practical. Paul actually had a great, mentioned a great point when we were at the Waller meeting, was the idea that it'd be nice if the average person could look this ordinance and really understand it, which makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, Article 14, you actually have to back up 2 or 3 times and try to figure out where you are and where you're going and who's on first and, the
Like
whole.
trying to parallel park.
Exactly. It's very confusing. So it'd be nice if all parties could get together, make that very simplified to maybe solve the concerns, like Mike had mentioned, the idea that the town's informed and that we know there's stuff in place to make sure we're doing the right thing without being overburdening. Because we don't want to overburden someone that's doing a cleanup. It isn't like they're trying to get a new permit or working through a new ordinance to build a new building. They're actually looking to get cleaned up. So as long as we're making sure they're doing the right stuff cleaning up, to me, I think that'd be the important part of it, regardless of what the wordage is. But I would like to see, and I know that meeting's already taken place once, Steve, I mean, some of the people, the guidance, I mean, from the council, I would like to simplify it, but yet still have some meaning to it. Is that very too easy of a,
Roger.
Is there any way to simplify that and give some type of meaning?
It's a very simple question
Okay.
that you can answer yes or no. Do you want to create an exemption with requirements to meet that exemption for people like a Maine Electronics who are doing remediation under state licensure? Do you want to create an opportunity not to go to the planning board if they can demonstrate certain things? Either you want to do that or you don't. If you want to do it, that's what we've tried to do. And yeah, we can try to make it better, but we need to know whether or not you want to do it. I've heard all kinds of different opinions, but I think that's a fairly simple question that can be answered yes or no, and that's the information we have. Otherwise, we're going back to the planning board
No farther.
with no guidance and no further ahead.
So Roger, their reporting to the authorities, so to speak, would still be the same.
This would have nothing to do with any of their requirements with EPA or DEP.
Which
They have to do that.
they
anyway.
have to do it anyways.
Absolutely.
So that, none of that changes.
None of that changes.
The fact that those reports go to the water department and they have,
And I think
They
they come to the
have-
town
They
as
come
well.
to the town as well.
they have the opportunity to
Yep.
give feedback.
Yep.
None of that's gonna change. Okay, my answer is just fix it.
Go back to the way the wellhead was written originally? I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of what
I
you're saying,
just-
right?
that's
Not
my
require the
answer.
planning board to review remediation changes.
So let's take a straw poll here and just see who wants to provide
Please.
that exemption and who doesn't. So let's go around. Yes, if you want to provide the exemption, and no, if you want to keep it the way it is currently, they have to go to the planning board.
You wanna- okay.
Well, wait,
Okay.
maybe it's not as simple as yes or no. Okay.
This is a lawyer talking. No, no, no.
I'm trying to
Make it easy, I
trying
realize.
to deal with this. Be patient with me. The range of options that you have is not to regulate this at all, which I think is what Gina is saying. No planning board review, okay? Or you can require a full planning board review with no exceptions. And the planning board will have to figure out how they're going to deal with this. We'd obviously write some peer review and things like that into it, but it would require the planning board to deal with this as an application before the planning board if there's a change in remediation licensure. Or What we've tried to do here is to create a middle ground that says that there are certain circumstances where the change in licensure really doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the aquifer, it doesn't affect the properties around it or their property. And under those circumstances, if we're sure that that can be demonstrated adequately, then they shouldn't have to go to the planning board. So those are your three choices.
And option 3 is what we've already tried to do. just
Option
it's
3
not
is what
understood.
note 14 is all about at this point in time. So choose 1, 2, and 3.
If we're doing straw poll,
All
I
of the
would,
above.
I would go at number 3 because that was the intent and that was a concern along the line. But actually have number 3 to the point where it would be some type of practically, how would I say that?
Something you could read and understand?
There you go, that
Yeah.
makes sense, huh? As Paul would say, make it simple.
My answer is number 3 also.
3.
3.
Make it simple,
Yeah.
That's not easy.
though.
Roger?
I'm
You're
gonna,
asking us to do something that's not easy.
I'm gonna say 3, but I would like to have the input from the water department.
Well, it's already, it's in there.
It's in,
It's,
And I think that's the requirement of however the language is written, which I don't have directly in front of me. But again, I get back to the fact that it's a requirement on the town to manage and follow the ordinances. So if a change comes forward within that property line, which we have this exclusion for, and they have to demonstrate it, the documentation they give us, that's not as detailed as going through a whole planning review board, but demonstrates no impact, I'm assuming that we as a town, including the water department, including planning board, including the engineer's officer, are gonna work together and make sure everybody agrees on it. Because I don't believe that anybody is one expert on the whole thing.
Let's go ahead,
You
Roger.
know, the one thing, Mike, that all the people sitting in this audience are probably thinking, and I know a lot of the people out there in TV land are gonna be thinking, they have seen over the past few years our ordinances terribly abused. And they're not willing to tolerate abuse of their wellhead protection.
That's right, I agree.
And I think that's what. the whole
example
thing
of a abused ordinance.
All right, let's not-
Junkyards all over the town.
Let's not get into this right now. We can discuss this another time. We gotta stick on topic here. And I'd say option 3, but I might like to see it broadened a little bit to see, more than just the town engineer. If someone else in the town has a big concern about it, they could do a circuit breaker and bring the planning board into it also. So if, say, code enforcement or, whether it's the chairman of the water commission or somebody else would have the ability to say, I don't agree with the planning board, or I don't agree with the engineer, I want the planning board to review this. So, it'd be pretty rare. I think you'd really get a situation where, someone else would really flag it.
Can you write into the language, Roger?
I thought we were
that,
trying to make this more simple.
Can't you just write into the language that the representative from the water department and the engineer will make the decision jointly? Something simple like that. That way, both parties are looking at it, both parties will have to agree upon whatever it happens to be and move on.
Yep.
Does that work?
Give it a try.
Sort of.
Sort of, kind
All
of.
right.
Make it so.
All right. All right. Next item, Twyla.
I'm done with my report. We did get the bids on the Frost Hill property closed on Friday. We opened the one bid. We did not put it on the agenda tonight, just something we missed, but we had one bid. So we can put it on the July 5th meeting, or I can tell you who the bidder was and what the amount was, or it's up to you what you want to do.
I think we should put it on the July 5th meeting and just do it all the way, through normal procedures.
I'm done.
All right. Next item, Twyla.
Is audience participation. Those at this time who wish to address the council may come forward and use the microphone at the podium. Please state your name and address for the audience here and at home.
Larry Fillmore, Lisbon. I need to know, we talked about this and you just went through the wellhead protection. I agree with it. You're working diligently. I got no problems with that. What I do have a problem is that the dragon pit is taken out, digging out there, and they'll be in China by the time we get this finished. There needs to be some protection right now to protect the water supply over there and the aqueduct, so that we don't have an issue while we're waiting for this to come out. I checked with the code enforcement officer, and he said there's no permits. Well, if there's no permits, why is he digging over there? He's pretty close to us. We need to be concerned about it. If we're going to take a few more minutes or weeks or days to get this through, we need to stop that over there before he gets to China. Okay? The sign ordinance, I thought that was almost finished. We just changed a couple wordings from 1 minute to 15 seconds or something, and it never came back across the board. Are we gonna wait 3 years to get that one done?
It was
It
approved.
was approved. It was approved.
We didn't, it wasn't voted here.
Yes, it was.
It was.
I've been to every meeting, I didn't see it go across. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, on the website, and I brought this up earlier, when you put the agenda out there, let's put the agenda items, the documents and the handouts, so that we can see these and go through them before they got here. None of us here had a chance to look at the budget. None of us. I was working off an old one. I know that for a fact because it's been changed so many times. Okay? And on that, every time we got a new budget this year, it had a completely different format. Everything was twisted all around. Here was there was there. Now, we need to have consistency so that we can review these documents without taking forever and a day to go through them. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And I also agree with that we definitely, in the future, we're going to need to try to make sure we have a more, reasonable process to have the same format every time for budget documents. It's very,
Should have been here when we had Green Bar.
Oh, I
That
know.
was a lot of fun.
but it is very
12
difficult.
miles long.
I've had to go through multiple books and compare one line to this line and see that they're all the same.
I'd just like to make a little side note on the Dragon Pit, and I won't drag on, but talked to a couple of people that are involved in gravel pits, and many, many gravel pits in this state are over aquifers. So it's just an interesting side note. We're in the excavation business. My husband knows a lot of professional people, and it is a fact. So just for a side note.
And just to add to that, I got an email from Mr. Kelly today stating that they've added another 16 feet to the top of the aquifer in areas that they're trying to level out. So I don't think they're digging down. I think they're adding material and trying to level the hills, but we're going to take a look at that.
And I think a lot of what they're doing also is removing stuff that was already in there. The previous owner had stockpiled a lot of other material in there, so that's what they're carting off.
I just
My
hope
understanding.
somebody's watching them. That's my only concern. I don't care what they're doing. If they're in accordance with what you people have directed, I'm fine with it, okay? But I'm worried that nobody's watching.
The whole thing is, we do have an ordinance on the books right now that clearly states that they cannot remove any material.
Well, that's not happening. Their trucks are coming out.
And that's an ordinance that's already on the books.
We will look into that. All right. Anyone else in the public?
I'm walking a little funny. I stayed my deck yesterday on my hands and knees. No easy task. Dot Fitzgerald. Just for your information, on the library, I was at the library this afternoon, and they began their summer children's reading program. So congratulations to them. Frank Anisetti's Moxie T-shirts are in, if anybody wants to see. And so they are available at the Moxie store. A lot of other nice things. They've got some nice ceramic mugs there, Moxie mugs, and on the bottom it does say that that Moxie is the main official drink. It appears that going over this budget and approving everything carte blanche makes me wonder if the town council, the town officials realize that the economy is not good. I've mentioned this before. We have businesses that are closing, new businesses, two businesses closed within the past couple of months. This is tax revenue that we are not going to be receiving. And I've mentioned before, the former Knight Celotex property. It's probably a well-known fact, at least it has been mentioned, that the new owners plan on removing all of the buildings, tearing them down next year. This is going to be a loss of tax revenue. This has to be kept in mind. You can't lose tax revenue and keep on spending the way you are. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. I don't, times are tough, gonna be getting tougher, and it just makes me wonder. I'm wondering, okay, when you're having some budget transfers, I was talking with the Public Works Department the other day. They were doing some mowing gardens and so forth in my area, and they mentioned that the Green Thumb Gang only has about $125 to spruce up the gardens and everything for the summer, continuing sprucing them up for the summer and for the Moxie Festival, and I'm kind of wondering if maybe you could see your way to a little bit more money for the Green Thumb Gang to keep the gardens spruced up for the summer. Just a thought. Nobody's asked me to do that. Going to the town council working rules, it's in the working rules that you adjourn at 9:30. You can't, there are things that come up, and I'm wondering why this was not on the agenda, this about the main electronics. It wasn't on the agenda. The public was blindsided on this. I don't know if the council members were blindsided, but the public certainly was blindsided on it. Talk about the town council being blindsided by the public. Well, the public gets blindsided too. And I just don't think that was right. There needs to be some flexibility on rules and regulations and agendas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dot. And I do want to say, I didn't know the lawyer from Maine Electronics was going to be here. It would have been on the agenda if I had known he was going to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right. Next item, Twyla.
Is under appointments, Order 2011-115, confirm appointment of Lisa Ward as Voter Registration Appeals Board Chairman, as nominated by the town clerk.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item.
Order 2011-116, appointment of Louis Levesque for sealer of weights and measures.
So moved.
Second it.
And now he's the person who's been doing this before here,
years.
correct? Yes, for years. Yeah. Any discussion on that?
It was a thing in the paper that other towns appoint him longer than what we do?
Yes,
Couldn't we
2
just
to
do it?
4 years.
And give him a little more?
Well, how long did he ask for?
5 years, I think.
5 years. That seems reasonable.
Is there anybody else that does this kind of thing? I think that question's been asked
All right.
before.
Usually there's one person who does it for a
Big
region.
area.
He says here it's just a 2 to 4 year period, so it's up to you.
Okay.
You can appoint him as long as you want.
So I think our motion needs to have, how long we want to appoint him for, if we're going to appoint him again.
I think we ought to go to that 2 to 4 year period. I mean, that's the way it's written here, and I think move
Well,
forward.
that's
and-
Well,
actually, no,
yeah.
what he's writing there is how
Yeah,
other
pick one.
municipalities do it. Some do it indefinitely, appoint him forever. Some do it for a 2 or 4 year period. He hasn't requested any specific.
Any, what have
He
what have
just
we
said
done in
anything
the
for
past?
4 years?
Something like that.
What do we do it for 2 years?
One.
1 year?
In 1 year.
Yeah, so for a year.
Why don't we do it for 4 years?
I think 4 is a good idea.
4 years is fine, sounds fine to me. He's been here for 19 years.
So I made so my motion was to appoint him for 4 years.
4 years, all right, and, okay. And that was seconded by Fern.
For 4 years.
Okay. Anything further to discuss on that? Anything from the public on sealer of weights and measures? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item?
Order 2011-117, appointment of Scott Benson.
It's an appointment to the executive committee, but it has to be an elected official. I serve on the executive committee but the town needs to have an elected official appointed to the General Assembly, so we have 2 votes. So it was Lori Parmelo, but again, the meetings are always held during the day. It's a very difficult process to get people there. I don't know if you want to be.
I'm willing to do it if nobody else can do it, but if somebody else wants it, they can have it.
Nope, all yours, Mark.
All right. Anybody else want it?
No, I
Okay.
gotta work, Mark. I'm sorry.
I had to skip class to go to one of these meetings one time during the day. My days aren't all free either. But I can try to make it.
So you have to vote on it.
So you need,
Yes, so the appointment is to appoint Mark Lunt to the ABCOG Executive Committee.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
all right, all those in favor? And opposed? And I'm abstaining because I can't vote on myself.
501. Order passed.
All right, next item?
Is under communications. Counselor Communications.
I have some.
Okay.
The Moxie Committee is working very hard. Twyla can attest to that. We've had a deluge of calls for the parade and the vendors. We're looking very good for the parade. For a festival that brings about 40,000 people into this town every year. We've worked very through difficulties, I should say, through many difficulties. We're hoping to have a solution to our electrical problem. We think we do, and it's been a huge cost for the committee this year. So we're hoping that you support the festival, support the committee, and come out for Moxie Days. Also, I just wanted to kind of go on to what Steve talked about before. Ridge Road is looking very, very nicely. They've basically put a golf course in front of my yard. It's pretty amazing. But they've been out there and they've been really doing a great job, and the road's going to look really nice. So I'm very happy with the progress. Hopefully we can get it done this year and be on our way. So that's it.
Go ahead, Fern.
2 things. One is, I'm glad the budget was actually passed, because it's been quite a process this year, and as many people that don't think there's a lot involved, I think all of us probably know more about the town budget than we do our own at times. And I want to thank all the department heads and everybody in the town that actually worked hard on this, because it was a very challenging budget. And I do believe, as if you look back over the budget in the last 3 or 4 years, every year we are reducing our budget to try to make do with what we have. But unfortunately, we're going to run out of things to cut, and unfortunately, it's going to be tougher times that may be coming, hopefully not. I'm one of these people who think next year's going to be better, so we'll play it as that. But again, thank you and everybody else that worked on the budget, because it was a tough budget, and I don't think there was a whole lot that anybody could really pick on too much. I mean, there's certain items that people may disagree with, but at the end of the day, I mean, pretty much Steve is actually working with recommendations that the council's given him over a period of time about consolidations and trying to save the money where we can. The second part I just want to add is a little defense to just the knowledge we have. The council was actually invited to a meeting from Scott Kelly about the Dragon Pit that he held at his facility. And I believe at that time most of the council members actually were there that night, along with the abutters. And some of the things that he went over, I believe, is going to be planned in a future meeting for Mr. Kelly to bring forward and actually show to the public. And it's not just a bunch of people up there digging holes and moving dirt. I mean, this whole project is from what he laid out, and the people in place is, there's an engineering firm that has engineered this whole project. And not just engineered it to their benefits, the whole project has been engineered with the wellhead protection that we have, that we eventually going to approve. It's actually been engineered to what our standards will be, not the idea that just trying to get a lot done before this project takes place or this vote comes on. So there's been a lot of foresight into the project. There's been a lot of work, and I give Mr. Kelly a lot of credit for actually doing it right. And hopefully when he does bring it forward to the town and puts that out, that he can. And I think he and his people that he have hired to do the project and engineers can pretty much answer any questions that's out there to ensure the people. I know the water department went in very concerned and came out of the meeting very happy with what they've seen. So I don't really think there's a lot of misguided effects being done right now at the pit. I think you'll find that it's all being done in the right manner.
Yes, go ahead.
The only one thing I'd like to add to that is that after that meeting, I did have a good discussion with Mr. Kelly. The one thing that people in town, they see activity over their wellhead. They get no information. They see a lot of earth being moved. And when you don't tell somebody what's going on, they fill in the gaps themselves. And I did relay that to Mr. Kelly, and he agreed that he was going to have a meeting with the council and try to get some of this information out so that people will understand that they're not going to try to do something underhanded. And he was going to go by our wellhead protection ordinance to the letter and above. And if the people of this community will just work with us, I think they will be pleased with what the outcome will be. But right now, unknowing, I can understand why the people are so very concerned about it.
I think that's why we do have to arrange a meeting,
Exactly.
arrange him to present his plans to the town, to show people what he's going to
Exactly.
do, so people will be calmed and not be so, let their imaginations run wild.
Right.
I want to say thank you to Twyla for all her hard work and, helping me at these meetings. You are very helpful, and it would be much harder to run these meetings without your help, especially like that budget where you have to go through all those lines. If I had to do that myself, it'd be a massive pain, so thank you, Twyla. All right, anything further from the council? Okay, next item then?
Is under executive session. Do you have in the order 2011-118 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA Section 405, 6C and E, acquisition of real property and consultations with the legal counsel?
So move.
Seconded?
All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed 6-0.
And just so the public knows, there will be no voting or decisions made. This is just consultation, and so there won't be any voting after the meeting.
Have a good